Hello friends, in this session we are going to learn a poem that is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, written by Robert Lee Frost. Robert Lee Frost was an American poet. He was born in 1874 and he died in 1963. He is highly regarded for his realistic depiction of rural life and his command of American colloquial speech. He is one of the most popular and critically respected American poets of the 20th century. He received 4 Pulitzer Prizes for his poetry. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. In this poem, the poet describes a little incident happened in a snowy evening. As a traveler, the poet is fascinated by the beautiful scenes in the woods. He stops to enjoy, but his mind urges him to go on. The poem is like this: Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it cure to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and the frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So this is the poem. This poem is written by Robert Frost. The very first line, whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. In these 2 lines, the speaker thinks about who owns the woods that he or she is passing through and is fairly sure of knowing the landowner. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. However, the owner's home is far away in the village, and thus he is physically incapable of seeing the speaker pause to watch the snow fall in the forest. He will not be able to see the speaker stopping there, and he is also unable to see or unable to watch his woods fill up with snow. So this is the first stanza. Then in the second stanza, my little horse must think it cure to stop without a farmhouse near. Now here the word cure means strange. My little horse must think it cure, must be a strange thing, that is, he is unable to understand why did the speaker he stopped there. So he found himself uneasy to stop without a farmhouse near. There was no any farmhouse near between the woods and the frozen lake. And where did the speaker stop? Between the woods and the frozen lake and the darkest evening of the year. And it was the darkest evening of the year, means it was most probably it's a month of December, 23rd of December, means the winter is going on, and his little horse he found himself uneasy, and he is unable to understand why did the speaker stop over there between the woods and the frozen lake, and it was the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. Now, the horse shakes the bells on its harness as if asking if the speaker has made a mistake by stopping there. Now, harness bells means bells tied in the neck of the horse to control it. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. So only the sweeping of the easy wind, that is the only other sound, and the downy flakes are there. So downy flake means what? That is soft feather like snowflakes falling. So this is what these are. There are number of imageries used by the poet, but that we'll see later on. Now in this stanza, the only other sound besides the ringing of this bell is that the wind and the falling snowflakes, which uh, the speaker likens to the feathers of goose down. And in the last stanza, the poet says that the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Now, the speaker finds the woods are alluring, drawn both to their darkness and how vast and all encompassing they seem. However, the speaker has he has some obligations. He has to fulfill his duties and responsibilities, and thus, though he found that it is, he was enchanted by the beauty of that woods, but in order to accomplish his responsibilities, he has to move on. He knows where his destination lies. So, this is the surface meaning of this poem. This journey represents the human life. So the journey actually stands for the human life. And the bare trees and the winter season, it reflects or it portrays a sad image. It tells about the feeling of sadness is there. But at the same time, snowflakes are there, downy snowflakes. It also resembles, it reflects or indicates the happiness. So these are some of the things as far as the deeper meaning is concerned. The darkest evening, fall of snowflakes, sound of sweeping wind, a lack of human settlement, or without farmhouse near, or all these things. These are nothing but when you think about it depicts the hardship or difficulties or the obstacles, or you may say the temptations in our life. So even though poet is fascinated by the beauty of the woods, he has to move on in order to accomplish his goals. Then imageries are there: harness bell, soft snowflakes, frozen lake, snowy woods, etc. are the imageries used in the poem. This poem describes a single incident that happened during the winter evening. Though the speaker was very much fascinated by the scenic beauty of the woods, the concerns of the practical life urges him to move on. The poet wants to tell here that life is full of joys and sorrows. So there are number of obstacles and temptations in our path of success, but in order to achieve our goal and fulfill our duties and responsibilities, we should avoid these temptations and move on. So that is what is reflected in the concluding stanza. Then we'll move on the rhyme scheme of the poem. The very first stanza is there. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. Now, when you think about this stanza, we find that the word no, it rhymes with do and snow, but it doesn't rhyme with the word here. So there are three rhyming words. So the no is the first word, that's why we will name it as A. The word no rhymes with word do, that's why we'll write it once again, we'll name it as A, as we have written no A, therefore do will also A. Then here this word is a little bit different from, it doesn't rhyme with the word no and do, therefore we'll write it as B. And the word snow, it rhymes with no and do, but we have written no as A, therefore we'll write snow also as A. So the rhyme scheme of this first stanza is A A B A A A B A. Now we'll proceed towards the second stanza. Now mark or concentrate towards the last words of every line. Cure, this word, it rhymes with the third word in the previous stanza, that is here. So we have written here as B, therefore we will write cure as B. The word cure, it rhymes with near and year, so we'll write near also as B. But the word lake, it doesn't rhyme with near and cure, so we'll write it as C. The word year, it rhymes with near and cure, therefore we'll name it as B. So what is the rhyme scheme of the second stanza? BB CB. So how we'll write? The rhyme scheme of the second stanza is BB CB. So this way we have to write the rhyme scheme. Now we'll proceed towards the third stanza. Now concentrate towards the last words. Shake, this word shake, it was rhyming with the word shake, mistake and flake, they rhyme. So it rhymed with the word lake, which was there in the previous stanza, but we have written a lake as C, therefore we will write shake also as C. Mistake rhymes with shake, therefore we will write once again C. The word sweep doesn't rhyme with mistake and shake, therefore we will write it as T. And the word flake, it rhymes with mistake, therefore we will write it as C. So what is the rhyme scheme of the third stanza? Okay, the rhyme scheme of the third stanza is CC DC. Now we'll proceed towards the last stanza. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep and miles to go before I sleep. So the word deep, it rhymes with the word sweep, which was there in the previous stanza. So we'll write it also as D. It rhymes with keep rhymes with deep, therefore we'll write it as D. The word sleep also rhymes with keep and deep, therefore we'll write it as D. And the last word, once again, we'll write it as D. So what is the rhyme scheme of the last stanza? Yes, the rhyme scheme of the fourth stanza is DD DD. How will you write the rhyme scheme of the entire poem? The rhyme scheme of the poem is AABA, then BB CB, CC DC, and DD DD. So this is the rhyme scheme of the poem. Now in this poem we have the chain rhyme. Then we will proceed towards the figures of speech used in the poem. Whose woods these are, I think I know. Now here and his house is in the village though. Now see, mark towards the first line. Whose woods these are, I think I know. Actually this line should be, I think I know whose woods these are. But the poet has purposefully changed the sequence of these words, and when the sequence of words in the sentence or in a line is changed, it is called as inversion. The words are not in correct prose order, so the figure of speech is that inversion. In the second line also we find the same figure of speech. His house is in the village though. This word though, it is usually used at the beginning of the sentence or line, but here poet has purposefully used that word at the end. So here also we find inversion. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. So in this line, the words dark and deep means sound d is repeated. If any sound is repeated in a line, so it is called as alliteration. So alliteration is there, the sound d is pleasingly repeated. In the next line, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Now concentrate towards this last two lines. This line is repeated, isn't it? So if any line or word is repeated, it is called as repetition. Here the line is repeated. And you also find that euphemism is also another figure of speech. When the harsh reality, so sleep is not the ordinary sleep. The sleep, it tells us about, its deeper meaning is death or the end of the life. So that eternal sleep that poet wants to tell here. But this harsh reality of death is reflected softly by using the word sleep. So that is why this figure of speech is known as euphemism. Are you getting? So the hesitation is there in the mind of the speaker, and he has also the choice what to do. So hesitation and choice is one theme. Nature versus the society is another theme that we find in this poem. How to appreciate this poem at the secondary level. So first of all, the title, you have to write the title of the poem. The title of the poem is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. So this way you have to write. You may underline it. Then the poet of the poem is Robert Frost. So the title will be asked for half mark. The poet, it will be asked for half mark. Then the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme of the poem is AABA, BBCB, then CCDC and DDDD. So this is the rhyme scheme of the poem. The figure of speech, you have to write at least one figure of speech along with the example. Alliteration is there. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, and the sound d is pleasingly repeated. If you write the name of the figure of speech, it's all right. But if you write the example or its description, then it will be a better thing. Then we'll proceed towards the theme of the poem or the central idea of the poem. This poem describes a little incident that happened during the winter evening. Though the speaker was very much fascinated by the scenic beauty of the woods, the concerns of the practical life urges him to move on. So this is the surface meaning of this poem, or the surface, or the theme at the surface level. The theme of the poem. The poet wants to tell here that the life is full of joys and sorrows, and there are number of obstacles and temptations in our path. But in order to achieve our goal and fulfill our duties and responsibilities, we should avoid those temptations. So this is the theme of the poem, expected, and it will be asked for 2 marks. So this was the appreciation of the poem. I hope you must have enjoyed this session. So thank you for listening this session, and keep watching videos. Thank you.